All right, looks like we have kind of a miracle that just happened the past 15 minutes. We're very concerned about the weather. Thanks to all of you for coming, despite the beautiful view we don't have today. So I'm Benjamin. I guess all of you received a message from me. I'm a partner at HAX. And take good note of this. If you don't have it, take a picture. Right, so everybody's set. You have your data. Excellent. So today's masterclass is about M&A, so I'll explain a bit why VC is doing such an event, and I'll introduce some of the sessions on the flow of this afternoon. But maybe prior to that, I'd like you to just identify yourselves a little bit by a quick raise of a hand. So who's in corporate development? Raise your hand. Whoa! That's more corporate development people I've ever seen in the world. That's great. It's on brand. Then, who's a banker, lawyer in audit or other type of corporate services? A few of you. Yes, great. Who's a VC or other type of investors? That's showing angels and PE as well. All right, a few. Startups? 1, 2. If you have a corporate development department in your startup, you're not a startup anymore. Just so you know. And who's in this beautiful other category? Hey, what do you do?
Outsource CFO for startups.
Outsource CFO for startups. Very good. Excellent. And over there was someone else. Yes?
Business development.
Sorry?
Business development.
Business development. Excellent. All right. Well, looks like we have the crowd we expected, more or less. In terms of numbers, actually, as you know, we had a lot of signups, and we're very concerned because the room is just about half the size of the number of signups we have. But the weather helped, and that'll be good. So I'll hand the mic now to Larry Chu, who's a partner at Goodwin, and as you know, we're in their office, and they've been very kind to already welcome an event in New York we did in June, and let Larry tell a bit more about Goodwin.
Well, welcome everybody. Is this working?
Yes. Yes. It just has to be pretty close.
Great. Welcome everybody. It's our pleasure to host you here at Goodwin. I have the honor of welcoming you, but also head up the tech M&A practice here at the firm. Given that there's so many corp dev people in the audience, it's a tough time for you guys because we've been very busy overall. I think the M&A markets in tech are up about 35% year over year this year compared to last. As a firm, we do a lot in all segments of tech. This past 5 weeks, we just got done announcing the $8 billion sale of Qualtrics to SAP, as well as acquiring SendGrid for Twilio for $2 billion. So we've been busy, super busy. I personally worked on a lot of hardware stuff. Sold Nest to Google, sold Dropkey to Nest, sold Oculus to Facebook, so on and so forth. So we know your space. We're deeply involved. For those of you who don't know Goodwin, we obviously have a deep strength in tech, but we're more than that. We focus along industry lines. We have a very, very deep fintech practice because we have a historical financial services practice. We do a lot of consumer work, so the consumer hardware and the consumer startups, digitally native direct-to-consumer brands, we know that as well. And on top of all that, we have a very deep private equity practice, and a lot of our sponsor clients who are competing with a lot of the strategics here at CorpDev this year, making it hard for all of you because there's cheap money and relatively inexpensive debt still, are incredibly active. So overall, just to give you a sense of what we see in the marketplace, we do between 100 and 150 deals a year in our technology practice and about the same in our PE practice. So over the last 6 years, about 1,200 deals on the buy side, probably about 800, 900 on the sell side. So we have good market insights. What we like to promote is the strength of our network overall, not only here but globally. We have obviously a big footprint in the US, but we have offices in Asia and Europe as well. So to the extent we can help out, and we don't like to promote necessarily just our legal services, but our market intelligence, if you're looking for targets to buy, if you want to think about, what's going on in trends, please feel free to reach out. We'd be more than happy to chat. So welcome, and hopefully everybody has a great discussion today.
All right, so switching mics. Technology doesn't work. Seems amplified.
A little higher.
A little higher. Okay. Let's see if that works. So we actually also have a few members from our team. So as I mentioned, I'm one of the partners at HAX. Before I tell you a bit more, I have also a few other colleagues. So Kate, a partner based in San Francisco, is going to moderate the second panel. And Cyril, who's the founder of HAX, the hardware branch of the SOSV fund, is also here, as well as we're lucky today to have as well the founder of our fund, Sean O'Sullivan, who's like the SOS in SOSV, and also say a few words later. Just to tell you a few words about what we do at SOSV, we're a seed VC, early stage since 2010, evolved from family office of the great success of Sean as an entrepreneur. We're one of the most active out there. We have today about 525 million under management, so I say about because we're closing a new fund, and about 800 startups in the portfolio, so that's kind of our motivation around understanding better M&As. HAX is the hardware branch. We also have a very active biotech branch in San Francisco called IndieBio, and with another branch in London called Rebel Bio that does a lot of things related to cellular agriculture, gene editing. The presence of SOSV is global, branches in San Francisco, New York, in Shenzhen, China, for hardware in particular, in Shanghai, in Taipei. I'm these days based in Paris, used to be in Asia for way too long, so this is kind of familiar side to me. We co-invest with a bunch of companies you probably know, Sequoia, Besme, Andreessen Horowitz, and many others, and we have, luckily, even though we're very early stage, already a few unicorns in our portfolio, such as Formlabs, Getaround, BitMEX. So those are some notable companies from our portfolio. The one on the top left is one of the very first hardware investments we did through our accelerator program that's in Shenzhen, a company called MakeBlock, doing STEM robots. They just raised over $40 million as Series C, valuations about $400 million. They sell internationally. It's one of those up-and-coming global companies from China. There's a few. You probably know most of the electric kickboards out there, all made in China, mostly by the same company, part of the Xiaomi universe. A few others, Memphis Meats, you might have heard of. They make like a really expensive meatball. The price is going down, so you have it. BitMEX, if you like me have crypto, are crying at the moment. They can help you because they do a crypto exchange for derivatives. Then other companies you might be familiar with, Getaround, for peer-to-peer sharing of cars. Formlabs, a 3D printer that does high resolution printing. And this one probably very familiar to San Franciscans, Jump Bikes. SOSV was the lead investor in the company, just got acquired recently by Uber for $200 million, so that was very good for us. All right, I'll now hand the microphone to Cyril and Sean to say a few words.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you all for coming over. I just won't bother you too much, but I wanted to say that we're happy to have you here today because we started just I think 9 months ago this series of Exit Masterclass, and it was really the goal for us was really for making sure that there is no misunderstanding between everything happening in merger and acquisitions. And really, it started with mixing startups with corporate development people, as well as having investment bankers and private equity firms and then lawyers, and essentially, we're trying to kind of demystify what's really going on within an acquisition. It's an extremely complex topic, and we realize how much startups in general, and of course we've invested in many, do not understand what is actually going on. And so we really want to use this kind of platform to have a great understanding and a great education for everybody. And we welcome really anything that you may be able to add to that.
And so at SOSV, we invest in first-time founders through our accelerators. And we really believe in first-time founders because we think they create the changes that we want to see in the world. And when you look at it, it's funny that the 5 most valuable companies in the world today are actually all first-time founder companies. They're not second-time or third-time or fifth-time founder companies. So that's obviously Apple and Facebook and Amazon and Google and Microsoft and even more in the top 10 are first-time founder companies. So as corporate M&A people, you are trying to buy those companies before they become larger than you, undoubtedly. And we recognize that, in fact, of course, that's the exit that most of our startups end up being through, I guess 95% of the companies are M&As rather than IPOs. So we are happy to, help make those relationships happen. And we are grateful to learn from you and help connect our companies and the whole universe together, be a connector for you today. Thanks very much.
So I'll give a little bit of extra context, because if you've been following the news, you probably saw things like this. SAP acquiring Qualtrics right before the IPO. Things like IBM acquiring Linux distributor Red Hat for, I think, the largest tech transaction ever. So Todd, who's here and will participate in the first panel, is actually working on that deal. Won't be able to say anything about it, but it's good to have him. Apple about Shazam. I mentioned this one because I actually met one of the founders of Shazam yesterday. We caught up after for quite a while, and like the description of the journey of Shazam over the past 18 years, like the up rounds, the down rounds, and how much actually founders got out of the deal is quite surprising. And then this one, just as of this morning, BlackBerry, which everybody thought was dead probably, is buying companies, buying silence for 1.4 billion, and is doing a lot in cybersecurity and business solutions. So it's interesting here to notice that, of course, you have a lot of usual suspects like those companies, Amazon, Apple, Cisco, Facebook, that are buying a lot of companies, but there's also a lot of other buyers. There's a very long tail now of acquirers. And if you look at the VC-backed exits in 2017 across the US and EU, and you look at the numbers, there's way more M&As than IPOs, like 10 times, and I think last year was quite a good year for IPOs. And there's also a number of PE buyouts, which is a topic we won't really be able to really talk too much about today, but is more and more relevant. So M&A, if you're a founder of a startup, is something you should learn about. The strange thing that most founders spend a lot of time talking to their customers, talking to investors, and very little talking to corporate development people who are the ultimate customers for their company, not just their product. So why this masterclass? The idea is really to learn from the speakers and also from you, because there's a lot of you practitioners of M&As, comparing methodologies, understanding what kind of learning curve companies go through as they start to do M&As. There's more and more non-tech companies that are starting to buy tech companies. I was in a conference in Europe recently and met with a company named CarShare, maybe you know, like tooling company, power tool company. And they just set up a CVC, a corporate VC branch, and they're starting to look at acquisitions because they said, well, we know electromechanical stuff, but for all the software things, we probably need to buy it. And they're a little bit worried, and if things don't go well, maybe they try one deal, and then they won't try another one for a few years. So what's the learning curve? And the idea is also to, for us, gather this knowledge and spread it to our portfolio and beyond, so that founders are better prepared to work with corporate development people for everybody's benefit. So the topics that we are planning for this event are things around how do you balance buying versus building, partnering, or investing in startups? What kind of process are you working with for deal flow, for selection, valuation, negotiation? How do you measure success? Generally around integration, how do you structure that? About keeping teams, incentivizing, matching cultures. Also talking about how tech M&As are now spreading to non-tech companies. And finally, it's a topic that we are less familiar with, but this seems to be quite interesting, is how do you finance acquisitions when you can't pay a big check up front or just a chunk of equity. And there are other ways around debt, around working with private equity firms, and that's also something we plan to discuss. So without further ado, we're going to start with our first panel. So let me invite Natasha Ligai from Logitech and Todd from IBM to join me here. Yeah, sure. No problem at all. So you can sit here. We have a little
To
mask
put
for
this
you.
on?
So yeah, we thought since you brave the weather on the bad conditions, we give you a few gifts. So you will probably already found your mask, so you can go home safe at the end. All right, so maybe to get started, so both of you spoke in previous events we organized in June. You spoke in the San Francisco event, you spoke in the New York event, and both of your experiences were really interesting, and that's why we have you back.